What are you doing out? Maybell, this is not where you belong. Come on, no, come on. How'd you get out, you little stinker? So the key is always getting one in without getting the other out. Come on, sissy, let's go. No, you better stay your little honey in there. Come on, get in, come on. You need to go. Maybell, come on. Hi everyone, Jill here. Welcome back to the farm. Well, I have got one of my goats loose, which she's back. Nathan is fixing another problem on the farm. Our pigs keep getting out and getting into our neighbor's yard. So Peppa is at Rabbit Ridge Farm getting rebred. We have the 3 babies that we sold at their new farm. So we just have one of our Cooney crosses, and then we've got 2 babies, but a tree fell down a while ago and knocked down the fence. Nathan temporarily fixed it, and we thought we went back and fixed it right, but somehow they are just able to get through. These pigs, you guys. Nathan loves the pigs. They are the biggest nuisance on the farm. I don't care what he tells you. He will argue that it's my goats all day long, but I promise you it's not. It's these stinking pigs. They get out every day. So I'm gonna let him handle that, but let's head down to the tunnel because I want to talk to you guys about some stuff. Oh, y'all, it feels amazing in here. So last night I came through and I closed the sidewalls down on the tunnel because it's gonna get a little colder. I'm gonna talk to you guys about that. And I've still got fall tomatoes and fall cucumbers, so I wanted to trap as much heat in here. And it's pretty chilly outside. It didn't even really get that hot today, but man, it feels so good. So one of the #1 reasons why I love having a high tunnel is it can be a blizzard outside, quite literally. And you can come in here and you can just see green and life, and you can see produce growing. Y'all, it makes me so stinking happy. So while I did put the sidewalls down, we still have the shade cloth on, so that will be coming off this week. Usually it's towards the end of October I'm taking it off, because here in Arkansas I'm in zone 7B, so central Arkansas, we usually like are sweating at Halloween, okay? Like the kids are in like short sleeve shirts, I'm in a tank top. It really doesn't start getting like cold here until after the first of the year. But we're experiencing a little bit different things this year than we have in the past, and so trying to be mindful of that, trying to come out here and just see what all we need to do and make sure that we're actually on top of things for once. I did just kind of want to show you guys, look at the leaves on the kohlrabi. So I've actually never grown kohlrabi in a tunnel, and so my leaves have never gotten this big. Well, it's still taking a minute for some of these bulbs, which is pretty standard. I've always noticed that my purple kohlrabi takes longer to form than my just like my white varieties, but look at that. So that's great. The white ones over there don't have as large leaves, but they've already got decent size little bulbs on them, but you can see the leaves here are quite a bit smaller. I've actually used these like I would a collard green, and they taste really well. So this month, checklist going off. I know that, you know, I've got the shade cloth that needs to come off. We've got all this ginger behind us, which we will harvest this month for elderberry syrup. So we sell elderberry syrup on our website. Our friend Sean and Melanie do it, but we grow all the ginger for that because that's really fun. And then I've really kind of tossed around the idea of what I wanted to do when I have all this space. So I've been trying to bounce around some ideas on what I want to put in this space. So last year we overwintered flowers in the 2 outside beds. We're not doing that again this year. So I could just keep cranking out food production in here. There are still some flowers I could grow. I have ordered some tulips, so that might be a possibility, or I might put those in the cottage garden. So still trying to play around with some stuff there. These are all my little transplants, and I told you guys I thought a mouse was getting in here because I had done these little grids of beets, lettuce, and chives, and I thought a mouse was eating them all, and then we found out that a chicken was getting in here. So now that the sidewalls are down, I don't think we're gonna have to worry about that anymore. They are doing really nicely though. And the lettuces that were able to hang on did really well. So I'm just gonna go through on the rest of this grid and direct sow. So we have all of our hot peppers, which are just thriving. Check out those little guys right there. And then here's like our broccolis and our cauliflowers. And then over there we've got Brussels sprouts, broccoli, and cauliflower. So things are still looking really lively in here. So I'm actually going to go through and just spot direct seed some of these radishes that didn't come up, and some. So our spinach over here is actually looking really good. This is what I interplanted with our celery. This celery is a little small, but some of these other ones are doing really, really well. So I kind of had this oh man moment this week. So we have our first frost tomorrow. You guys, our estimated first frost here in my zone is November 14th. That is almost a month earlier. I was not expecting this. I was not prepared for this, which is why when I figured this out over the weekend, I decided I was gonna put down the sidewalls, trap as much heat in here as I could over the next few days. But Wednesday night is supposed to get down to like 25. I'm just crossing my fingers everything's fine outside. I am probably gonna just throw some row cover over my beets and my carrots and my radishes out there. I think that all my brassicas are established enough outside to be fine, and things in here should be okay. However, even with trapping some heat in here, my cucumbers, my tomatoes, they're not gonna love this, right? And I talk about this often. The way to have success in a high tunnel growing year round is growing things that prefer to be grown within their season, right? So like I really kind of pushed the limits with my tomatoes and my cucumbers because I didn't think we were gonna have our first frost until the middle of November, truthfully probably the end of November. So I knew I kind of had that wiggle room to play around with, and I could grow these hybrid varieties that were gonna produce way faster, you know, from seed to harvest than an heirloom might would. But now this is really just kind of throwing me off. I don't even remember when we've had a frost this early. So all of our dahlias, we have harvested the last of our dahlias. We're just gonna wait and see what the frost does to them, and then we will start digging up tubers and storing them. So seems crazy. I know I've talked to many of my friends up in northern states, and they have already experienced heavy snowfall. So it's one of those things, what do you do? As a gardener and a farmer, you are always at the mercy of the elements around you. And so I'm crossing my fingers that it freezes, but then kind of stays a bit warmer so I can get a big, massive harvest off of my tomatoes in particular. The cucumbers, we have literally harvested and fermented so many cucumbers. I feel great about that. But I was relying on this fall crop of tomatoes to make our ketchups, our tomato paste, our sauces and things like that. So I don't know about you, but I'm over here like batten down the hatches on, oh my gosh, I cannot believe that this is happening already. I actually really love the fall and the winter, so I'm here for it. But just wasn't quite expecting it as early as it is. So I'm going in here where I am seeing that some of my seeds didn't germinate. I am just hand sowing. I have got the watermelon radish from Hudson Valley. I bought a bunch of their art packs. They're really, really stunning. When you open them up, they like tell you the story on the backside of the seed packet. And then they work with all these different artists, and some of these are just really cool. And so I had this idea of collecting some of these fun ones and like framing them and putting them either in the house, in my office, or something like that. But these watermelon radishes are super stunning. They get really big, and they get their name because they look like a watermelon. So the inside's pink, the outside's got that green rind, and they're just really stunning. So aside from this little patch here and just a few there, down here we've had great germination. I mean, look at all these. And then, like I said, the celery's getting bigger. All of our spinach is doing really, really well. And then I wanted to show you guys when we direct seeded all the carrots down there with the tomatoes, what they look like. So as you can hear outside, the wind is kicking, you guys. Weather's changing. So these are doing really well. They've gotten quite a bit bigger. There's tons of blossoms on here, so I'm just you know, keeping my fingers crossed we can keep it warm enough in here over the next, you know, week or so to get these to produce. And once they do produce, you know, these are determinate varieties, so they're not going to just keep growing and keep producing. They're going to grow to that determined height, put on all their clusters of fruit, and then be done, which is actually, you know, what we wanted this time of year. But if you guys can see behind me, maybe let me zoom in some. We have got such great germination on these carrots and these radishes. And so I hopped on my Instagram the other day and I gave a little quick tip. And sometimes when you've been growing food for a really long time, you think, you know, oh, well, do I even share this? So many people must know this. And I'm realizing that there are so many new people gardening, and that just really makes me so happy. And so I'm trying to think, well, how do I go back and think through some of the things that I learned as a beginner that were really helpful, and realize, yes, some of you guys may know this, but what I have found is that a lot of people don't know these quick little tricks. And so I was talking through thinning out your carrots. And so I'm going to share with you guys how I do this. It's super easy to do. And it's a little time consuming, but I recommend doing it because you're just going to have better success, really. If you go through and you heavily seed like I do, so I dig a trench and I'm just sprinkling a bunch of seeds because carrot seeds are really small, and you don't go back through and thin those out, what's going to happen is you're going to have a bunch of teeny tiny carrots. And that's always a complaint I hear from people. How do you grow a lot of carrots? My carrots don't ever size up, they don't ever get big enough. I've found a lot of that is due to people not going back through and thinning them, and I know this because I'm that people. I'm the person who has sowed all the carrots and then totally forgot about them, never went back through, and then it was like, oh my gosh, all that time wasted. So I'm going to share with you guys what I do. I find that when they're super small like this, your fingers work great. Now, if you've waited until your carrot, you know, the tops are pretty big, grab a pair of snips or kitchen shears. The biggest thing to remember though is you're not ever going to pull it up. You're going to pinch at the baseline. And the reason that we do that is because if you have heavily seeded and say you've got 3 little clusters of carrots and you know, pinch one up, it's going to disturb the root system and that taproot of the other carrots, which is going to be defeating, you know, the purpose of you growing them. And so if you just pinch them or cut them at the soil line and then let them die from the soil down below, it's just not going to bother any of your other ones that you're leaving there, and you're going to have greater success in the long run with being able to harvest your carrots. So I'm showing this with carrots. However, you can do this with your radish if you've oversown radish. You can do this with your lettuce if you've oversown it. And the great thing too is depending on when you decide to come through and thin, you can pinch all those off and then have them as microgreens. So typically we're not wasting any of this, we're just taking it in the house and eating it. Alrighty, so right here you see I've got a whole bunch of these carrots that were sown. So what I'm going to do is find which one I can pinch off at the baseline. I'm going to take my fingers and literally just pinch. So then I've got the top here, and then I'm going to go through and figure out what are some of the other ones that are too close together. So let's see, if I want this one to grow, then I need to probably pinch this one back here. That's just me going through, pinching it off. So now I've got 1, 2, 3, and even honestly these two over here are kind of close together. So I'm just going to go through, pinch some more, and now I've got this one and this one back here spaced out appropriately where I know that they can grow a decent sized carrot. Now I do find that this is way easier to do when they are smaller versus letting them get super big, because one, they're going to be harder to just take and snip off with your fingers. You're going to have pruners. And then usually, I don't know, if I don't catch it when it's like they barely started sprouting, I tend to forget sometimes. And so just as you're coming out here, if you're keeping eyes on your plants often, just go through and do it. It's one of those like weekly maintenance things. I would set yourself up on a weekly schedule, and once you've done it once, you're done, right? You don't really have to worry about it unless some more have germinated, and you know, you just continue to pinch them down. I will say though, Nathan seeded these and he does a little bit better job than I do. Nobody tell him I said that. So these are spaced out way better than mine were out in the raised bed garden, but it looks like we had pretty good germination rate on here. I'm going to go through and show you specifically with the radishes. They look really great. Check out all of these little radish babies. They look so good. So I mean literally all the way down, they're great. And even the carrots, there's some that I need to go back through and like spot seed. But especially down here, like it looks like we had really good germination rate. And the reason some of it's probably spotty is I went out of town. We weren't hand watering as much until they all germinated. So I bet if I came through and started watering this, I'd notice all those empty spaces would start filling up. But I'm so hopeful we're gonna have tomatoes. Look at these though, they're looking so good. So many blossoms. I mean, so many blossoms. It's so great to me too that I've got a jacket on. We've got our first frost tomorrow and I can come out here and I can smell the tomatoes, you guys. Oh man, I love it. So all of my brassicas back here in this bed look great. I really kind of got a grip on all of the pests. You guys know I was dealing with caterpillars pretty bad. So I sprayed BT and Ultra, which isn't for pest management, it's just for plant management. The plants uptake, it's like a prebiotic fertilizers, and the plants uptake it through their foliage and disperse it where it needs to go. And so I did that about every week for a month, and it really got rid of the problem. Now, of course, when it gets colder, you don't really have to deal with that near as much, but I did find that I got a good grip on it before it did a lot of damage. Now, I had mine over there in the other bed. Some of my cauliflower varieties didn't make it. I think the ones though that didn't make it in here, I have those varieties grown outside, so that's something else too to think about. If you have a high tunnel, or if you're thinking about a high tunnel, I like to grow the same variety in 2 different places. So if something happens in one place, maybe I'm dealing with, you know, particular pests really bad here in the tunnel, but I'm not dealing with that pest out in the raised bed, I can still get a harvest of it. And so sometimes I'll do that. I'll have, you know, varieties out in the raised bed garden and the same variety in here, if it's not like a hybrid greenhouse variety. Or I'll have some, usually this is always happening this time of year. Last year I grew a lot of the same varieties out in the raised bed garden and out in here too. And it just allowed me to kind of double my harvest. And then it also allowed me the opportunity to teach you guys, those of you who don't have a high tunnel, that you still can grow food in the wintertime with row cover, and pretty inexpensively and pretty cheap. And so I really hope to just encourage you guys in that if you know, want to still grow food year round and in the wintertime and you do not have a high tunnel, you certainly can. Don't be limited by that. Just figure out what's going to excel and do well in your climate. Figure out when that estimated first frost is, and then make sure that you are setting yourself up for when that frost happens. I find that just a light cover of like row cover works really, really well. So everything in here looks cozy. Those of you guys who have already experienced your first frost, I feel you. I just never would have thought here in Arkansas this is something I'd have to be dealing with right now. I know my squashes in particular, I've got a ton of squash outside. I'm sure they're going to take a little bit of hit, but I'm hoping that they're sizable enough to where I can still get quite a few off of them and that the plants will still bounce back and produce quite a bit. All right, you guys, well, I just really needed to come out here because I have been sitting behind my computer editing the fermenting course that I'm doing all day, and it was just to a point where I needed to just take my shoes off. I needed to walk on the bare grass. I needed to see green life happening in my tunnel and just get my hands in the soil. So I do encourage you guys, if you have a job like that where it's not really what you love doing, which I love editing for the fermenting course, but that's not what I'm used to spending all my day doing, right? Just take a minute to just take your shoes off, walk outside, just breathe in the fresh air, go lay your hands on some plants, maybe smell some flowers if the frost hasn't killed them all, and just reconnect. For me, just spending the last 20 minutes out here with you guys has just totally put me in a better mood than I've been in all day. So I know it's super valuable for me, and it might be really valuable for you too. But thank you for hanging out with me today. I'll talk to you soon.